All right, what I have here is a 3D unrolled combat jet. You can see here layer 11. I have a 3D unrolled model. Okay. I took that model and I added it to another composition. And when I brought the combat jet in, it was a composite shot, and I unrolled it. Okay, I have two of them here. So you notice I don't have any motion blur. Okay, I have a little depth of field on the camera, which is making the first jet a little blurry. Okay, so if I wanted motion blur, I think I would just click motion blur, right? Well, you see, motion blur, there's no effect motion blur with an unrolled 3D comp. So you go back to the model itself, click motion blur. Notice nothing happens here because there's no movement. And I go back to the composite shot with the unrolled 3D composite. Notice the motion blur, okay? But also notice that the motion blur is terrible, for one. Also, notice the jet has flipped around 180 degrees. Now the movement, the jet is going backwards. Okay? Don't know what's going on there. Don't know what's going on. Look like the jet's trying to roll around underneath the camera. Now, just to show you again, okay? So here's a composite shot. It's unrolled. I go into the model itself, unclick motion blur. Let's go back to the unrolled composite shot. Voila. The jet is aligned to the direction and working the way it should. Now, granted, I don't have no motion blur. Now, I did figure out a way for motion blur. Okay? I made myself some little notes here. So with motion blur, if the model is a 2D layer, turn on motion blur in Combat Jet Comp and unroll in the Move Comp. Okay? So, what do I mean by that? Let's go to the, if the model is a 2D layer. So here we go. Let's turn this model to 2D. Okay? And then I go over here. And I click on motion blur. Well, my notes must not have been proper there. Let's just go back a little bit. Try that one more time. Come on. Hitfilm sometimes a little tough. Okay, so here's my motion blur. Unrolled. Everything is unrolled. Okay. Now, this is totally weird. Notice now that I clicked the layer. Here. I went to this combat jet. I turned this into a 2D layer. Okay. I unrolled the comp to make it 3D, selected the motion blur. Okay, so now I have the motion blur and the jet is in the heading in the proper direction of my move point. Okay, so just gonna go back here, gonna unclick this motion blur, just see what's happening over in this other comp. Okay, so one of the jets disappeared, and the other one is just depth of field, no motion blur. So, go back here again, unroll the jet, get back, unroll this jet, get back to where we are. Okay. Now, the jet's back, no motion blur, okay? And, everything is cool. Let me see what my other notes say here. Without motion blur, if the model is unrolled in the combat jet, make sure unrolled in move comp. Okay, so that's, here I am unrolled. Here I am unrolled. Okay. So, one more time. 2 unrolls. Go back to the model itself. Click on motion blur. Move to the main shot unrolled. Jet's flipped around. The shot's just not the way it's supposed to be. Go back here again. Unclick motion blur. Okay. Here we are. Everything is working like it should. If I click motion blur here, like I say, nothing happens at all. Okay, with this motion blur. It should. Don't know why it's not. Weird deal. Weird deal. So, the final setup on this combat jet, just to let you know, I have the jet tied to an animation point, and that point has just got the jet rotated on the Y 90 degrees. The layer of the jet is centered on world 000. Okay? So, interesting. Not sure what's going on. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks for watching.